And you see, at first, I didn't actually believe that it was my baby because the baby had Paul's face. And I was just like, wait, like, but then I realized that I just needed more faith, I just needed a bit more faith. And that, that it couldn't possibly have been like, Paul's baby, even though it came out like clutching Funko Pops from the womb. Yeah, so
Same.
yeah, I have faith in our cult. Yeah.
The same happened with my mother when she gave birth and Paul was there. It already had a beard,
Yeah.
and it just kept saying, like I say, which was
I
strange
just
for a
thought it was
newborn.
strange that Paul was delivering milk to your mum's house like every day for that amount of time. I mean, wasn't she lactose
Yeah,
intolerant?
yeah, she is, and also he kept
Yeah.
joking that he was Pat Mustard for some reason, and
It,
I just yeah, it's really weird. It doesn't look anything like my dad, and
mm,
the same thing, clutching Funko Pops. But this is what's
yeah.
weird: they're all unboxed.
Yeah, well that's the thing. It's like I just are we all Paul's children? Are we is that how it
Maybe
works in the Nerdy Up North cult?
is that how it works? Well, I mean,
I
he has said that the day is coming soon where we will all have to ingest the great steak bake to transcend this mortal coil.
we,
Um,
yeah, he texted me about that, and I was just like, wait a minute, what? Am I at least getting some new trainers out of this?
well, it's quite weird because Jake's a vegetarian, so I don't know how that's going to work. Anyway,
Yeah.
space, the final
Oh yeah.
frontier. These are the voyages of the starship Adequate. Our ongoing mission until we are cancelled and replaced by something far superior, or we all die in a cult. To review every episode.
Transcend
Yeah,
in a cult.
that's good.
There we
Anyway,
go.
where
Yeah,
was I? Yes.
it's very clear. It's all about wording.
To review every episode and movie of Star Trek in existence. To seek out new guests and make them very uncomfortable. To boldly go where many other YouTube Star Trek shows have gone before. Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, treks and trekkers, and alien species all along the Milky Way galaxy. This is Trekking Up North. I am your host, Captain Goodwill of the U.S.S. Adequate, and joining me is the delectable Yeesian from the planet Hong.
Honk.
We still can't get access to Deck 12 because of the roaming geese, which is all his fault. It is
No, no,
Sam.
no. My fault was teaching them how to use phasers and providing phasers for them. I mean, I've got to admit, I regret that, but it made me laugh, so it's worth it.
It's Science Officer Synoiz! Everybody,
Hello.
hello!
Look at it. It's just the two of us today. Just the
Just the
two
two
of
of
us.
us.
We
Can
can
make
make
it
it
if
if
we
we
try.
try.
Just the
Just the
two of us.
two
You
of
and
us.
I.
Boy, you end a bit Inspector Gadget there. Next time, Gadget.
I'll get you, Gadget.
Right. Anyway,
That's showing our age there. Showing
it's
our age.
I don't know
We're
what you
too
mean.
old to be tricked into a cult with Paul, aren't we?
Was that trekked into a cult? Ha ha ha!
Tricked into a cult.
What a great segue! Hello to everybody in the chat. Good God, look at this chat. Look at all these viewers that have
These
joined in.
our followers, these lovely, our lovely followers
All
here.
looking forward to eating the great steak bake of transcendence.
Who
We've
have
got
accepted the love of the Paul Wraith.
the Paul Ray.
The Paul Wraith. That's what it is.
Keiko is evil. Hello to everybody in the chat. We've got Beth, we've got Peaches, we've got David, we've got
Hold on, we've got Unplanned Trek.
Unplanned Trek. We have got David Hope. We've got two Davids. We've got Dave Eyes in the chat.
Double D's. That's
Double
impressive.
D's. We've got David Jones, the one from Nice France, and we've got David Hope, the one from Shit Sunderland. We've got Lee. We've got Captain Joe Dove from Captain's Quadrant, who has changed their show to 9 p.m. tonight, which is 2 a.m. our time, because they moved to Fridays because they're trying to ride off the back of our success. I'm joking, Joe. I'm joking.
Hold on, success. Yeah.
Shh. Right. And we've got the lovely Colour with Wonder, Kelly herself. Honk. How's your mother, Kelly? Anyway,
What do your babies look like, Kelly?
do they look like Paul? They will soon.
Do your babies look like Paul, Kelly? Is that? Oh, Lee sounds like he's got a good mouthful for me there. So that's
Oh,
something.
what's he got? What's he got? in his
Apparently, it's pizza, but we know it's the D.
mouth? We all know Science Officer Synoiz likes a stuffed crust. But anyway,
we've got 3 Ds in the audience tonight.
Oi, Goodwill, you're too southern to insult Sunderland. No, I'm not. Okay, we are here. We are here.
We missed half Cardassian babies off the list of people this episode was for at the beginning. You could have at least worked that into the intro. Treks and Trekkers, half Cardassian babies, where someone just sellotaped makeup onto a baby.
Someone's put a spoon on someone's
Literally, just gaffer taped a spoon onto the head of a child. They're like, right now, I've got to do fucking Worf for one scene after this, so I'll just spray him grey and be done with it.
Fill the spoon, dear doctor. Right.
Oh, no. No, don't fill the spoon. Fucking hell.
Fucking hell, it's only been 8 minutes. Right.
It's so bad. That is the one Trek meme where I'm like, no.
And just slow taking his headphones off, going, oh god.
Yeah, I'm just like, nope, I'm leaving. I'm done.
Oh god. For those playing the home game, we are referring to the meme where Sloan from Sections 31 is listening to Julian Bashir's conversations and he overhears Julian getting amorous with Garrick. And Garrick goes, fill the spoon, doctor.
Which is, to people who do not watch the show, i.e. Beth, and I can't believe I'm saying this directly to Beth, but referring to Cardassians, if you look at some of the pictures at the bottom, have an indent on their heads that is like a spoon, and the aspect of bukkake.
Whoa, Gul Dukat.
The dark world of Trek.
Okay.
Oh,
wow.
are we going to make it through this fucking episode? we already struggled to get a bloody poll together today. We did about 5 voice notes back and forth being like,
man.
what the hell are we going to do a poll about today? Like, really struggling for because the issue we have with the polls is we love the ideas of polls, but I'm a dickhead with it where I don't want binary options. I don't want a yes or no. I always want there to be multiple options. But then as soon as we get multiple options, they're really kind of elaborate. And then bloody Twitter only allows you to have 10 characters per option. Per option. And it's just like, so we kind of go, how do we ask a nuanced question without any space, that isn't a yes or no?
It gets even worse because Twitter, you can't do a poll with a picture. So even my genius workaround, where it was like, put a poll on the Nerdy Up North Facebook community, paste the poll onto Twitter, and then just say A, B, or C in the poll. And it was like, no, Mr. Musk doesn't allow pictures. So we do, for those watching live, we have a poll. We have it on the Nerdy Up North Facebook community, which is over 10,000 people, by the way. We have
too many.
We have it on the Nerdy Up North.
too many. That's going to be a lot of sneakers for Paul to buy. I'm just saying.
Imagine if
when the Great Ascension happens, that's a lot of great sausage rolls he has to buy.
Let's not forget the Nerdy Up North page has 40,000 followers. 10,000 people followed in a week. We announced last
Did
week.
we actually leak Lee's nudes? Is that what happened?
Yes, I think that's
Right,
what I
okay,
did.
I did
I
it.
think
Okay,
someone
that makes sense.
I think someone accessed our OneDrive. It's 6 terabytes and it's still not enough for the shaft.
Lee's dick is so big, we needed to make a 2 drive. We need it. We need to extend it.
Microsoft are developing PC2 just
Like
to
you have the
compensate.
OneDrive and then you fold it out.
Yeah.
it's like a fold out the 2 drive and then 3 drive. So it's
I love the fact I've made David a Canadian go bloody hell. We have the poll on the Nerdy Up North Twitter page. It's pinned at the moment. If you are part of the Nerdy Up North Twitters, go there, vote. We also have it on our Discord group as well. Go there and vote. It is a very, very interesting poll, and I will say, without spoilers, quite divisive at the moment. It is a saucy question.
But these are the things like what I'm saying is I don't like binary polls, but I like. I love how literally we're already making dick jokes, but it's like I do
You're the
not
one
like it
making
when,
a dick joke.
when polls. I have a lot of criteria for the polls I enjoy. There's a soundbite for you. Take that one, Joe.
A poll that gives him one-word answers is not a successful poll.
Exactly. You know, at least get a gasp out of me. But
at least allow it to trigger a conversation.
Yeah, and that's it. And I prefer it because the last couple of polls we've had have always had one option like way ahead of the other ones. And I kind of want to gear it towards a discussion of being like, hey, there's loads of different options. Because the cool thing about it on Twitter, at least, is that I think you can't see the actual however people have voted until you've chosen.
Yeah.
So you can kind of vote on it and then be like, oh, I was totally different to everyone else. Whereas what we're finding is it's like that, and yet people are still voting for the same thing. Whereas, yeah. And I think the question we got this time is pretty good, but we'll be dealing with that at the end, won't we?
Yeah, so we won't mention the question until the end of the episode, but if you do want to vote, feel free to go to the Nerdy Up North Twitter, see my post in the Nerdy Up North community or the Nerdy Up North Discord, and vote away, because it's a good question. And let's be honest, this is a great DS9 episode. And this is the first DS9 episode we have got where it's a Dukat episode, which for many people is widely considered to be possibly the greatest villain in Star Trek, purely because he deeply believes in what he is doing.
He's a very nuanced villain. Like a lot of the time with Trek villains, they're a bit shallow. Like, you know, you have like all the various daemons for like the Ferengi and stuff.
Not you, Damon, other daemons. It's fine.
Oh yeah, no, that's it. Well, and that Damon as well. I'm throwing him in. Yeah, so it's our lovely Damon and also Damon Bach and whatnot. But it's the idea of they tend to be like, oh, they're just doing things for profit or revenge, and it's a kind of shallow thing.
Yeah.
Dukat is so incredibly nuanced, and I believe he is probably the best representation I've ever seen of a narcissist in TV.
Yes.
Like, the way he works and everything about him is terrifying. And we get a lot in this episode where basically, like, he has this amazing ability to manipulate people, but the fact is, he is convinced himself. That is the delusion. Most people, like evil people, are like, oh, I'm going to trick people and, you know, make them do horrible things. And I didn't really believe it myself. Whereas he genuinely does believe his own bullshit. And that's terrifying, you know?
We had a podcast episode of the actual Nerdy Up North main podcast last year about our favourite villains. And I was asked, like, what makes a good villain? And it's someone who is absolutely convinced and is in full belief of what they are doing and what they believe is right and just. And those make the most terrifying villains. You get in Star Trek, you get monsters of the week, you get villains of the week, like Damon Bach, like
you get crazy things like is it Armus? Where Armus is like literally just exists to be evil. And you're like, okay, that's
But
not very deep, but I kind of love that they've doubled down on
and
it. But you know,
we had villains with layers in Star Trek prior to DS9. We had Khan, which to an extent, as we saw last week, Khan had had a just cause for wanting to seek vengeance. But then we got Gul Dukat, who all the way through Deep Space Nine just got progressively, I don't want to say worse, but well, yeah, it got progressively worse with his actions, his causes, and his belief. And this, for me, was the sheer pinnacle of someone who has not believed their own bullshit, but is so convinced, and they have convinced themselves on a subconscious level that what they are doing is right, what they are doing is true. And deep down, this is all on the basis of this person wants to be loved, revered, and have unilateral control over everyone under him.
yeah.
And this episode just mirrors cults in the 90s, shall we say, because this was an issue and still is to this day, but we had a fair few cults in the 70s, 80s and 90s.
It's terrifying. It's
Yeah.
genuinely like the scariest thing about this episode is the fact it is so brazen about it, because like obviously at the time I think I was like lusting after boy bands and stuff, because I was probably only about like 15 when this episode came out. But it was the idea of like this episode came out a year after like it wasn't Jonestown, it was Heaven's Gate.
Yeah.
Like the Heaven's Gate mass suicide was like 1997. Hold on, I wrote it down.
Because this was 1998.
1997. And that's when everyone Kool-Aided themselves. Well, no, it wasn't Kool-Aid, it was something else. But you know,
it was a punch. Yeah, it was a punch drink.
Basically, they poisoned themselves to death. Bizarrely, bought new trainers to, which is the joke I was making earlier. Bought new trainers to die in, so that they could go up to the alien mothercraft with them and stuff. And this is like having, you know, it's like this is like about sort of aired about just under a year after that event. And that's kind of terrifying, if I'm honest, that they would deal with this. And what it does is it mixes up all of the cults. So it basically has Heaven's Gate with the mass suicide, which also Jonestown in the 70s, I think it was. But it also mixes in that habit of basically having someone in charge of the cult who believes they're the Messiah and then takes advantage of everyone and like sleeps with all the women and sort of tries to cover it up with
it was an
religious...
amalgamation. You had characters like Charles Manson, the other cult leaders. This Dukat's portrayal in this episode was an amalgamation of all these cults that happened in real life in America and outside in the rest of the world. But it was at a time where I would say cultism was probably at its height.
And I was saying how strange that was, though. Like when we look back, okay, look back to the 90s Goodwill.
Yeah.
How amazing was that? Like, you know, like how amazing, like literally the 90s where things were cheap and we had all of these lovely creature comforts, and there weren't any there was the Gulf War that didn't really affect us like over here, but all of like how lovely life was.
A lot of
and
people
yet,
think
people still try to run away with cults. Like people still went, "Oh, this is fucking hideous. We need this communal life, or we need this other sort of like life in order to sort of survive." And then you look at now, and you're like, "Wow, they were like that when it was pretty good, and now how shit is it?" You know, it's like
you think that I mean, everyone looks at the past with rose-tinted glasses. We are all guilty of that. But I think with our generation, because we grew up, let's be honest, we grew up mainly in the 90s. This is why a lot of people in our generation consider the next generation era of Star Trek to be present-day Star Trek. And that's why there was a lot of love and a huge demand for that era to continue, because it represents a time in a lot of people's lives where it represented hope. But it was at a time where we had just come out of the Cold War. The Cold War had ended in 91. The Berlin Wall had fell.
Was it that late?
Yeah. Was it 89 or 91? I think it was 91. The Berlin Wall had fell, and there was a huge amount of optimism, positivity. There was still stuff going on around the world, but a lot of people consider, like, there's jokes like, when was the last time you were truly happy? And for me, I'm like, I can remember 1998 with great fondness because I had so much Star Trek. We had the PlayStation 1. I was a kid. There was no worries or everything like that. And it's like, shit, it was actually the 90s. And a lot of people go, it was a simpler time. And you think, yes, because the internet was in its infancy. We didn't have the perils of social media. If you wanted to talk to someone, you picked up a phone and go, you spoke to them. And it was just a simpler and yet more positive era, because when you looked at the future, you were like, holy shit, we can go do this, we can go and do this, as opposed to now where it's just like, oh no.
Well, that's it. It's like, you will never get on the housing market, you will never do this, you will never, like, all these crazy things, and then you look back at the opportunity and you're like, whoa, but then it is rose-tinted glasses.
But then you look and then you go, with such a positive outlook decade, with so many things sort of going right for people, we then had a high amount of cults because these people preyed on, well, the dark times are coming, this is going to happen, this is going to happen, and sort of preying on people's anxieties and vulnerabilities to say, yes, it's all rosy and this is all good, but the governments are going to collapse, money's going to become a thing of the past, there's going to be massive nuclear war, and there's going to be this, and there's going to be this, and these people just believed it, and 9 out of 10 of them were just huge money-making Ponzi schemes. Scientology. But then you got the fringe ones where they were these narcissists who were so enigmatic and so charismatic to their cultists that they could literally bed every single one of them, and then when things started to go a little bit awry, take the Kool-Aid, take the magic pill, and then you're all dead. And it was insane. And
it's the idea, and now you've mentioned that, I can see how clever this episode is, that it parallels it, because obviously in real life you had the end of the Cold War, and you had, like, the beginning of the Gulf War, and then you had all these people who were looking at the world and all the propaganda effectively of going, look how terrible it is, nuclear war, and be scared of Russia, and be scared of, like, like the Middle East and stuff like that. And then people were just turning to anything to give them a bit of light and be like, hey, crazy charismatic, like, hot guy, tell me what to do with my life. And, and that's what people did. And then what we have in DS9 is that this is about, well, what is it? It's only about sort of 8 years after the occupation of Bejor.
Yeah.
And these people are basically going, well, our gods allowed that to happen, which a lot of people in this cult that we see are basically going, we were occupied for, like, how long was it? Like 50 years? The occupation of Bejor?
It was about 30 to 50 years, if memory serves. Yeah, so it was quite a long time. This Bejor was stripped of most
and
of
these
its
people
resources.
lost their faith. Like, a lot of these people, like, basically were, during that, they lost their faith in, like, the prophets and their gods, because they were like, how did they allow this to happen? Surely they should have sort of, like, stopped this from happening.
Yeah.
And therefore they turned to other stuff. And then, like, and that's how cults happen, like, when people are in a bad situation, they turn to, it's like with all religion though, isn't it? Like, where people are just like, oh, I don't understand all of these things, so I just want to get easy answers from a book.
Deep Space Nine is widely held as possibly the greatest Star Trek series that was ever been created. Me and Science Officer Synoiz agree with that. Sorry, I'm on 50 a day. Me and Science Officer Synoiz agree with that. Now, the beauty of Deep Space Nine, and this is why I love it. It was because it was set on a space station. The crew could not escape the issues. They could just not fly away and move on to the next thing. So the issues stayed, and they stayed progressively every week, every year. And Bajor is this very spiritual planet where the inhabitants religiously worship these gods called prophets, who came down from the celestial temple and delivered these orbs. And we find out in Deep Space Nine that these prophets are actually wormhole aliens which inhabit a is it an interdimensional wormhole that links the Alpha Quadrant to the Gamma Quadrant. And for those that don't know, in Star Trek, the galaxy is split up into 4 areas: Alpha, Beta, Delta, Gamma. So Voyager was in the Delta Quadrant, and Star Trek takes place in the Alpha and the Betas, basically. So the revelation, I mean, this is right at the start of this series in the pilot, where it's just like these Bajorans who have believed in the prophets for thousands and thousands of years realize, shit, they're actually real. They are real.
But it's an interesting thing, because obviously when we talk about Star Trek, what we talk about is science.
Yeah.
And Star Trek basically has science for everything. So, and the Bajorans and their relationship with the with the Parwraiths and the prophets is basically when they've worshipped these things for years, and these things have actually interacted with them. They've actually, they've sent them these orbs down to the planet that allow people to have visions. So that basically there's like various different orbs that are, found over the course of the series, where it's like the one of time that can do a bit of time travel, the one of sort of like revelation, which can see into the future, the one of like, I don't know, fucking, there's probably one of love or something.
The one for the mirror universe, where it can skip transfer universes and stuff like that.
Yeah. And it's like, and it's this idea of these are real things. Like this is like if there was something in our reality that just proved God. Like you literally just went, oh yeah, there's this relic of Jesus, and when you touch it, you're guaranteed to have, like a vision of the future. You'd be like, whoa, that's a pretty good case for religion,
Yeah.
But then in DS9, obviously it's all explainable through science that these are literally just alien entities that are being worshipped as gods, and for some reason look over this planet.
Yeah.
Because they are non-linear beings, where basically there's loads of confusing stuff in DS9 where basically they don't understand time. So
they don't, because they don't really understand the dimension that we all inhabit. They have no concept of, in their dimension, space and time have no meaning. They don't know what time is. And in the pilots, we see Sisko, where they go like, what is time? And like Sisko's having a nosebleed trying to explain physics.
And it's very clever though how he explains the concept of time to them, and they're just like, wow, why do you live like that? And he's like, I don't really have a choice,
Yeah.
But the great thing is though that it's like they slowly learn over the course of things. But it's this idea of, I like this idea of religion. I like this idea of gods. Like you can tell DS9 is like the writers are like probably atheists, but then they're able to write in a very nice way religious like
they're
stuff.
able to sort of identify that, what if this religion, I mean, this is obviously hypothetically, what if this religion is real, but is explained as, well, this these apparent god. Say if we take, for example, Greek mythology, and Greek mythology had all these gods on Mount Olympus. Okay, so what if these gods were a highly evolved alien race that helped the people of Greece, that helped them progress, showed them agriculture and architecture and stuff like that? This is sort of loosely what the Bajoran religion is, where it's like these were gods and they were revered as gods, but actually they were just highly evolved, non-corporeal entities that existed outside of our dimension, but interacted with the planet via the wormhole, which deposited the orbs. And very much like heaven and hell, you had the prophets, who were the wormhole entities, and then you had an exiled group of these entities.
We never find out what the Par-Wraiths are. Like, are they actually exactly the same as the prophets, just with a different agenda, or are they a different species or something?
Dukat explains that they were the same race as the prophets, but they were exiled as the prophets who did not want to have any interaction with the Bajoran people. The Par-Wraiths wanted to interact through, and Dukat
which is fascinating in terms of the parallels to Christianity, like the parallels to the idea of, because like I was explaining to someone the other day how strange the idea of like not the devil, but like Lucifer and whatnot is, where it's the idea of, when you read the Bible, it literally goes, hey, Lucifer's crime was trying to help people, and it's not like sort of paraphrased. It's not like doing anything like that. It's like, no, God went, hey, I've set this situation up and I quite like it, so I just don't want anyone messing with it. And then obviously Lucifer's just like, shouldn't they know that they're in a thing, and shouldn't they know all of the stuff and whatnot? And it's that bizarre thing. And so Dukat frames it as the Par-Wraiths basically went, hey, we should be like interacting and guiding the Bajoran people more and whatnot, rather than just letting them get on with things and not really knowing what's going on. And it's interesting that they put a parallel to actual, like, a real religion there.
They are treated as if they are the fallen angels in this respect, where they were exiled from the celestial temple and banished to the caves on Bajor, as we see in the later episodes of DS9. And it's sort of, yes, because Dukat justifies in the episode they just wanted to help Bajorans. They wanted to guide them and offer them when the prophets turned their back on them. I think it's probably best as well, because this is a fairly late episode in Star Trek Deep Space Nine. This is season 7, episode 9, and this is where a lot has happened throughout the series. We're in the midst of the Dominion War.
This is what I was saying earlier, wasn't it? The people in the chat, if you haven't watched all of DS9, there's going to be a lot of spoilers in this episode, because a lot of stuff that we see in this episode hinges on big events happening.
Even as recent as the end of season 6, which is pulled up in this, where at this point in Star Trek history, shall we say, they're in the midst of the Dominion War. The Jadzia Dax has been killed by Dukat, who was possessed by a Par-Wraith. And the background really annoys me that Terry Farrell left, because again, Rick Berman was a bit of a prick.
I think that the problem is it's very much a poison chalice what happened with Jadzia, because the fact is, like, I love what happened because she died. Where the idea of, it's an amazing idea of having a Trill in the show, where basically the Trills are symbiotic creatures, where they're basically a race of humanoids that has a slug in them, basically like in a symbiote.
They are
and then basically they become a combined entity for the rest of their life. And then when the humanoid side dies, they take that slug, put it into another person, and that other person remembers all the memories of the people that came before it, but then becomes a new entity in itself.
This is the Trek version of Jafar in Stargate. It's incredibly alike, but Jadzia Dax was a character in DS9 for 6 years.
One of the best characters.
One of the best characters, and Terry Farrell, who is possibly one of the best actors in Star Trek, and a genuinely wonderful human being. If you ever met
her, I'm going to give that. She's one of the best actors in Star Trek. But have you seen the Hellraiser movie that she's in? She is terrible in it. But the whole movie is bloody awful.
But she's still
she's the best thing in it. But it's not saying anything because it's a fucking awful movie.
But she's still a wonderful person outside of that. She wanted less screen time in season 7 of Deep Space Nine because she had other commitments. She has a family and she wanted to pursue other work. Rick Berman at the time just went, it's either all in or you are sacked, basically. And Terry good on her, girl. She stood her ground, and she was like, "You are not going to bully. You are not going to bully me. I will just leave." She called his bluff, so they killed her off. But it was a double-edged sword, because we did get the wonderful Nicole de Burr as Esri Dax in season 7, who in Esri Dax incorporated the trill of Dax. Due to a shuttle accident, and she was the only available trill at the time. She didn't want the symbiont.
And this is what I love, though. I love the idea of having a character of this kind of race in a show, and then having it where they die and they become someone else. Like I love the idea of it. I just hate that I love Jadzia so much.
It was the way it happened,
and it happens so late that Esri doesn't get any time to shine, really. And it's very odd, because season 7 basically starts off with Esri appearing and being like, "Hello, I'm the new Dax. I have all of Jadzia's memories and stuff, and I'm kind of confused about things." But then it very heavy-handedly has so much of her in that you're like, could we look at other stuff? Like, it feels, they're like, "Oh shit, we've got to introduce a character, and this is the last season of the show," and it's not brilliant, but then it's still amazing, because all of DS9 is amazing, but it is just like, oh, this could have been better.
It's and luckily in beta canon, Esri has been explored. She's a captain of a starship. She's married to Bashir. They have all these adventures, but it's something that a lot of people, and again, when there was references to DS9 characters possibly in Star Trek Picard, everyone was like, we want to see Bashir, we want to see Esri Dax, we want to see what happened to these characters, because Esri, quite rightly, did not get a lot of screen time to fully develop in the last series of DS9, because there was so much happening. And with this, at this point in DS9, this is literally the halfway point for season 7. We are over the hill when it comes to tying everything up with the Dominion War and everything like that. And
but it explodes. Like the last 20 episodes of DS9 are just like, here's all of the stuff happening. Which is great.
Insane. And we get some absolute corkers. We get the Siege of AR-558. We get In the Pale Moonlight. We get just absolute stellar
the episode after this is Just a Paper Moon, which is the Nog episode. It's the Nog holodeck episode, which is astonishing. They really knocked it out of the park with season 7, especially being on the back foot with what they had to do with Esri, what they had to do with this. I mean, this episode, if I had to describe this episode, this is it's not a filler episode, but it's basically the transition episode between Dukat being a sort of normal kind of like over the top kind of villain to being the super villain he is at the end of the series.
Because develops a messiah complex.
At the end of DS9, he is basically a cackling cartoon villain to an extent. And he doesn't start off that way. And then this episode is basically going, this is his transition to basically being, hey, crazy cult leader, and then, going a bit nuts at the end and stuff. I like it because otherwise it would be an awful jump. It would be dodgy if it just went from 0 to 100, I think.
It's fantastic because in this episode, his narcissism is his own undoing, because I sat there and I watched it because this was on. I was saying to you earlier today. This episode was on a couple of weeks ago when I was renovating the house, and I stopped. Like, I was in the middle of doing God knows how many furniture building things, and I was just like, ooh, and I was watching it, and I'm like, this is an incredible episode, but it's also. It shows that Dukat's narcissism is his own undoing, because I sat down and I was like, he could have got away with it, and it's very Scooby-Doo what I'm about to say. He could have got away with it if it wasn't for that pesky Kira. But
if it wasn't for that those meddling Kiras.
But this is the thing. His narcissism, his belief and desire to be loved by everyone was his own undoing, because he needed Kira there, because like he says in this episode, if I can open your heart, I can open every Bajoran's heart.
Yeah.
And I sat there and I was like, if you'd have just left her on Deep Space Nine, every one of those cultists would have been dead.
Yeah.
Every single one of them. But his desire to be loved by everyone was his own undoing in this.
Well, I think what I want to do, I just want to quickly mention that there are 3 key villains in DS9.
Yes.
There are more villains because there's a lot of villains in DS9, but there are 3 key villains and they all represent different things, which is basically you have Dukat, who represents like narcissism, but also like the need. Like his main thing is he needs to believe that he's the best.
Yeah.
He requires people to tell him that he's amazing. Like he needs constant validation. Like he can have everything. He can have all the money, he can have all the power, but it doesn't mean anything if people aren't like worshipping him. He needs people to love him.
Sorry,
you know?
Unplanned have just said Dukat should have just started a podcast.
Yeah, he really should have. Like,
attention,
would have
Bajoran workers, like and subscribe, or I will shut off the CO2. Anyway, go on.
yeah, and that's it. So he needs validation from people, and that's what he's seeking. Like,
Yeah.
so even when he gets a good situation going, he fucks it up because he's like, oh, but I need this. I need Kira to fucking
It's
love me.
never
I need the
enough.
Bajoran people to love me.
Yeah.
And it's this insecurity that destroys Dukat all the time that you get with narcissists. The other villain is obviously Kai Wynn,
Oh.
only wants creature comforts. Like their whole thing is they just want to be the top of the food chain. They just want to have power, and they just want to have all the nice things and whatnot, and they will throw anyone under the bus and manipulate anyone in order to get this. But it's different from Dukat because they're not going to mess it up. Like they would literally like, yeah, it's they literally would just kind of keep going unless what happens, which is Dukat getting involved with Kai Wynn and sort of knocking it off its axis and fucking everything up as usual. But it's like this idea of they're a more traditional thing, like a politician, where literally they don't want people to love them. They just want all the money. They just want all the money and they just want all the power and they want a nice place to rest. And then you've got Weyoun, which is basically a villain that represents
Conquest.
well, Weyoun is my favorite villain because Weyoun is so calculating that they don't care about power. They don't care about love. They don't care about power. They care about getting the job done.
Yeah.
They are evil with loyalty. Like, where it's this idea of they've been told, like, so with the other founders, where the founders are like, hey, we need to take over the Alpha Quadrant and stuff, and we will protect ourselves by enslaving everyone so that no one can hurt us. And then Weyoun's like, okay, that's my job. I will just do that. And there is no consideration at all. Like, if Weyoun just went, oh, this planet is resisting us, let's kill everyone on it. They will not have a thought. They will not have conscience. They will not think twice about doing something absolutely horrendous purely because it satisfies an aim. And that is, whereas Dukat would be like, oh, but what would people think about me? And oh, well, it might damage my stuff. And oh, I might have less power or might lose resources because of it or something. Weyoun would just be like, no, it puts me on the back foot, but I did the thing that I needed to do. And this trilogy of villains we have are wonderful because it's kind of like Captain Planet, where, in Captain Planet, where it's like, oh, here's the guy who's like, toxic smog, and here's the guy who destroys forests, and here's the guy who does this,
But the USP with Weyoun is, and again, it's a trope, but you kill him and 3 others will appear because Weyoun is a clone, and he's like, you can kill me, and then by the afternoon, there is another one. And we will just continue because we are so blindly loyal to the founders because it is literally programmed into our DNA to be without question loyal to the founders, and we will
is like politicians, where what I keep saying is like what we have with our fucking Tory government. Fuck the Tories, everyone. It's the idea of like people go like, oh, David Cameron's such a dickhead, and oh, Michael Gove's such a dickhead, and I'm like, no, don't hate the face. That's what they want you to do. They want you to basically go, oh, David Cameron's a dickhead, but Rishi Sunak, the next guy who comes along, is going to be different. You're like, no, hate the position. Hate, Because that's the thing, because they can just revolve them. You can kill a Wayoon and another one will come along and do exactly the same thing. It's the position and what they're doing that is the thing to be stopped, not, because they literally do it. They literally just get someone and be like, oh yeah, it's fucking Priti Patel. We'll just put her in position. We'll deliberately make her into a pantomime villain so everyone hates her and then doesn't pay attention to the other people. And then we'll just get rid of her, put her in a back seat somewhere, get a new person in and start the whole thing again. Like, and it is this terrifying, like, industry. What is it, like a conveyor belt of personalities that is what I see Wayoon is representing, where it's this cold, calculated, do the horrible stuff, and you can't get rid of them.
But as a trifecta of antagonists, and considering that, like like you said, this is a trifecta in the final series, like the final season, and you've got these brilliant antagonists all the way through that have different contrasts, and it's such a compelling series. But then again, it's also a series that is dark, but about family, about love, about sharing and building a home together.
Yeah.
It's about spirituality. It's about being in touch with both science and religion and making them work together. And it's a beautiful, well written, well made, well directed series that to this day, 30 years later, 31 years later.
It's only 30 years because we just had the 30-year celebrations.
Is just still revered and people still want to explore. And I just want to go back to the comments here because Unplanned Trek has started.
He's on fire today. We're not paying enough
fire.
attention to him, but he is always very good.
Isaac is creating, I can't wait for Mark to hear this. Isaac is creating a new podcast called Much a Dukat About Nothing. Lee says 4 villains if you count Neelix's cooking. Wrong show, but I'll give you it. Isaac bounces backward. Neelix dating a 2-year-old.
It's like not all villains wear capes, is basically.
But then referencing Kai,
but some of them fuck kids.
But I don't think Isaac was around for when I shed some light on why I detest Kai Wynn on a genetic level, because my ex-fiance was called Kai
Hold on,
Wynn.
fiance?
Yes. Moving on.
What?
Was called Kai Wynn, which is PTSD.
Fucking red flags right there, Goodwill.
PTSD inducing. I'm still banned from. I'm still banned from 2 churches. Anyway, this is, like I said, with this though, the exposition for this episode is that Kira has just, and this episode's going to be long because there are so many things that we're going to touch on this, because the opening of the episode,
we've run 50 minutes and we haven't started talking about the episode directly
yet. The opening of the episode, Kira has just attended a 2-hour sermon at the Bajoran temple about forgiveness. Odo,
ironically,
being a founder who is a non-believer, wishes that he had some spiritual connection to Kira so he could spend more time with her during the services. And I love this because this gets contradicted nearly halfway through the episode, because Kira's like, I don't care what you believe in as long as it gives you personal comfort and satisfaction. Because Ezri and Julian say, well, what happens if he worshipped Klingon religion, and if he worshipped Kahless and ended up dying and going to Stavakor? And Odo's just like, that doesn't help me spend more time with Kira.
I will say though how cute Odo is. Like Odo, obviously we've talked too much, but the thing I love about Odo is the founders, the race he's part of, that is a big spoiler midway, because we find out that actually he's one of the villains, or he's the same race as the villains. They hate humanity and they want to kind of get in control of everything in order to protect themselves. Whereas Odo is the one who takes the other path, and because he's around good people, becomes a kinder person and becomes able to love and appreciate humanity and what the solids are all about. And then at the end of DS9, he brings it back to everyone, and he basically goes, hey, I can help our race by showing them what I've learned, and we don't have to live in fear. And at this point, he's finally got with Kira, and they're in love with each other. And he has the sweetest thing in the entire world. Like Ezri points out how sweet it is, where he's like, I don't go to your church because I don't believe in any of that stuff, but I kind of miss the fact that I don't get to share it with you and I don't get to go to church with you
Yeah,
and be there with you.
that part of her
And
life
that's
she
really
doesn't
cute. I
share.
mean, it
It
could be
is.
a bit creepy and clingy, but it's the fact of something about it is actually adorable. But he kind of points out, like, look, I don't believe in anything, and I'd like to be part of a collective. And that is the message of the whole fucking episode of going, that's how cults start, you know? Like,
Yes, because when Kira is in her quarters, she's visited by Vedic Filler, who was, as we find out, was her teacher during the camps in the occupation when she was a child. Taught her about the three pillars of their religion of the prophets, which was forgiveness,
jam
caring,
and jam.
jam and
Jam
jam.
and jam eating.
Um,
It was
he,
just Isaac.
but he
Vedic Isaac.
he gives her a gift, which is like a mysterious jewel, which transports her to Empok Nor, where it's revealed that there is a group of Bajorans living aboard this desolate, abandoned station. She notices that they've got red armbands, realizes that they are the worshippers of the Par Wraiths, and the cult leader is revealed to be Gul Dukat.
And that's just before the intro, basically. But it's fascinating. It's the fact of like, so basically this person that she's trusted for years and who helped form her faith is actually a worshipper of the Par Wraiths, like effectively like the devil of their religion kind of thing is part of that. And she gets kidnapped effectively because she trusts him and then finds out that Dukat has started a cult. Well, he hasn't started it. Basically, what's happened is the Par Wraiths have always been around for a long while, like the cult. But then Dukat somehow has come along and gone, oh, yeah, I'm your emissary. You should worship me now.
Yeah, devil worshippers. To have a simplified parallel to real world. This is what they are technically classed as. They are Satanists. But it's
Well, no, because the Satanists are different, like I think because Satanists don't believe in deities, whereas these people
right,
do
okay.
believe in, yeah.
Okay.
But these are effectively sort of like, evil cult
Yeah,
people.
I
But they're
love.
not evil though, is the problem. They genuinely believe that the Par Wraiths are good. Like they're not sort of going, yay, evil stuff, let's kill some babies.
Yeah,
They genuinely believe that the prophets are the bad guys and that the Par Wraiths are just sort of because Dukat has a line later on to Kira where basically says, "Hey," because she basically goes, "Oh yeah, that's not at all what the ancient texts say." And Dukat points out that history is written
written
by
by
the
the
winners.
victors. Yeah,
Yeah, history is written by the victors, so it's the idea of yeah, actually that kind of makes a lot of sense. That like if the Par Wraiths were the bad guys, but the prophets won, then the prophets would try to make them sound terrible.
but I mean, the conversation that they have when she initially arrives at the station, he is basically saying, like, he's trying to justify why the cult exists, and he's going, well, during the occupation, the prophets did nothing. Where
Yeah.
were they? Why didn't they help you? Why did they allow tens of millions of Bajorans to die? And Kira just turns around and goes, well, we sometimes can't understand the plan that the prophets has for us. And this is a parallel with, real world
Yeah.
religion. When people go, the great argument is, if God is real, why would he allow so many tragic events to happen?
Yeah.
Why would he allow all these atrocities?
Why would he create suffering
Yeah.
and allow it to happen?
And the
basically?
justification for a lot of people is God has a plan that we don't really understand, but we must have faith that his plan is absolute and just. And this is paralleled with the prophets, with the occupation of Bajor, where she goes, we can't really understand the plan that the prophets has. And Dukat's saying, right, but then the Par Wraiths wanted to help the Bajorans, wanted to guide them and aid them, and they were cast out by the prophets. So who is the real enemy? The ones who didn't want anything to do with you and just stood by and allowed your people to suffer, or the ones that wanted to help and guide you and save you? And her faith...
it's a convincing argument
Yeah.
in the context of what they know. I mean, the great thing about DS9 is it basically just goes, oh, it explains why the prophets aren't paying any attention to stuff because they're not linear time. Like they are literally like we can't comprehend them in our sort of physical minds. So they're just like, oh, was Beijing occupied? Oh, okay. Well, that's happening now, but also they're free because we're seeing everything at the same time. So we can't really,
They
so it's
don't
this idea of
understand the
like the prophets
concept.
aren't aware of it.
Yeah, yeah, and this is the first instance where we see Dukat, who at this point we think, oh, it's Dukat. He is scamming these people for whatever reason, and Kira comes to the same deduction that Dukat
Yeah.
is. There's an ulterior motive as to why he has formed this cult, and all we see in this scene is Dukat. I have been changed by the Par-Wraiths. I
Yeah.
believe in their mission, and we get a reference to Jadzia because obviously this is the first time that someone has confronted Gul Dukat since Jadzia was killed, and he just justifies it. Again, he absolves any responsibility by just saying she was in the way. She was going to stop our mission, basically, and she had to die because she was in the way. He is justifying this horrible thing that he did because, oh well, it was justified because the Pirates wanted it and she got in the way, so she was bad.
To be fair, though, I would say I don't know if Dukat did kill Jadzia because the fact is, it seemed very much like he was possessed at the time. Like
Yeah.
it seems as though he didn't actually know what he was doing, and that that's a kind of issue where I think the Par-Wraith killed Jadzia, but I don't. I'm on the fence about whether Dukat willingly did it.
Yeah.
But it's
Yeah.
still the idea of, but it's still this idea of guilt, though, of he allowed himself to be taken over by the Par-Wraith and therefore is responsible for his actions that happened afterwards. So, but the the thing is, though, in Dukat's timeline, he basically was a good guy for a bit, technically, where the Cardassians and the Federation were sort of allies before the Dominion War. And then Dukat decides to betray everyone by being like, hey, actually, we're going to side with the Dominion. So they side with the bad guys and they totally separate off. And then Dukat becomes like a crazy villain. He gets promoted to like like the head of the Cardassian Empire, like, but is still under
Yeah.
the
He's
Dominion.
sort of
So
like
he's
that.
still under Wayun.
Yeah.
Uh, and then basically realizes, oh, this is a bit of a shit life, and I'm incompetent. And the Dominion are such a terrifying military force that they're just like, oh, you're incompetent as fuck. We're gonna kill you if you fuck up again. And then Dukat basically vanishes. So he basically turns tail and runs effectively, and then yeah, he goes crazy, and then he kind of comes back, tries to get back in with them with this like, oh, I'll hatch I'll use a Par-Wraith to basically sort of kill the prophets. And once the prophets are destroyed, then Cisco will have no power and we'll be able to defeat them. There's a lot of stuff in DS9. And he fucks that up because he basically it's actually hilarious what happens in that, but I won't spoil it for people. But basically he fucks everyone over accidentally, but he gets possessed by a Par-Wraith. And then he actually seems to build a faith from this because he realizes that they are actually real and they do appear to communicate with him from then on. And this episode is him appearing again from after being hidden in the background for a while, appearing again and being like, here's what I'm doing now. But the question is it all a trick and he's just doing it for power and worship? Or does he genuinely believe in the Par-Wraiths and genuinely believe in their cause? And the episode kind of plays on it a little bit because Kira, like you said, Kira just thinks it's a trick. Like he's just manipulating these people who believe in the Par-Wraiths and whatnot to trick them. But then we kind of find out later that actually he believes his own hype.
He thoroughly believes that what he is doing is correct and true. He's an emissary of the Paris, and the reason why he has brought Kira to Empok Nor is so that she can be by his side, because he is building a community of
the thing is, obviously he is a narcissist and he very much is obsessed with Kira. He has loved Kira because he basically controlled the concentration camps that were, because basically the Cardassians in DS9 are a metaphor for the Nazis and the Nazi occupation of Poland and everywhere else. And he has this obsession with needing the people to love him that he oppressed. And he has a thing for Kira. He desperately wants her to be in love with him and thinks he can do it in every way. So, of course, him being a cult leader, having all these people worship him isn't enough. He needs Kira specifically to fall in love with him, and he thinks he can do it. He thinks she can just ignore the horrendous stuff that he's done and get with him. And it is the most narcissistic thing I've ever seen, ever. That he genuinely thinks he has a chance with her, but he tries so hard over this series.
Because we find out earlier in the series that he also had an affair with her mother.
Yeah.
Which is absolutely heart-wrenching for Kira to find out when she travels back in time and sees this. But yeah, so this is the thing. Like, he is brought her there because he wants her by his side, and he wants her part of this community that they are building on this station. She is, as with every cult, when you've got someone who doubts you, what do? You just lock them away until you can convince them and brainwash them and everything like that. I love that Vedic Fila comes to visit her, and it's revealed that, how long have you worshipped the pirate? Long, before the occupation ended, with everything that was going on. And this sort of parallels what Dukat was saying, where, where were the prophets when the Cardassian people were oppressing the Bajorans? And Vedic Fila, in his own right, turned against the prophets and found the Par-Wraiths, because he was like, well, hang on, if the Par-Wraiths had the Celestial Temple, would they have vanquished our enemies? Would they have actually protected us and saved the lives of all the people that died? And again, it's someone having a crisis of faith during a very dark period in history, that, because he is thoroughly convinced that Dukat is the emissary of the Par-Wraiths. We don't, he believes that Dukat has seen these visions and that the Par-Wraiths speak through him, and he's desperately trying to convince Kira himself that what is going on is right, and it's time for the Par-Wraiths to take the Celestial Temple. And I love that straight away they have this argument about Gul Dukat and everything that he had done, during the occupation, and that I am disappointed in you that you won't forgive Gul Dukat, which, as we learned earlier in the episode, is one of the 3 pillars of the Prophet's religion. And then she turns around and says, some things cannot be forgiven.
And this is the interesting thing. It's the fact of, like, what we see in DS9 is the trappings of religion aren't the religion. And that's where we get confused, where it's this idea of all of the teachings and stuff like that aren't as important as the message, I think. And it's a strange one, I think. Like, I'm going off on one there, but like it's the fact that Kira, her faith is very subjective, like the way she believes in stuff. And like they're saying you need to forgive, and she's like, but I can't forgive Dukat. Like, it's basically the idea of, like, religion doesn't have all the answers is effectively what it's telling us. And, it's a catch-22, I think, for her. But I think the thing I love about Vedic Fila is the fact of that he worships the Par-Wraiths, but he's not a bad person. He is an incredibly good person, where he pretended to still follow the teachings of the prophets in order to teach them to other people, in order to be there for them in the camps, because he knew that they needed it. So he was willing to put up this smokescreen of still believing in the prophets and still believing in the religion in order to get other people through, which is a kind of cool thing to do. And it's also the idea of, in other religions, how many people do we have in a position of authority that don't really believe it? Like, you look at stuff like Israel, where you just like, the people in charge of that are blatantly not practicing Jews. But, like as in, how could you if you don't practice what you preach,
Yeah.
and it's this idea, and with other religions where you have a lot of people who are vicars and it's a job, they don't actually believe in religion, they don't believe in all of these things and whatever, and they're doing dodgy stuff on the side. But when it comes down to doing their job and being up in front of people, they're willing to sell it like a good salesman,
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's interesting that, we have a character like that who has lost his faith, believes in something else, but is still willing to go through the motions for the sake of other people.
When we
And is that a good thing?
when we get the tour of the station where this cult has set up a community on this abandoned station, and we get to encounter Mika, who is the only cult member who is pregnant, and we find that, I mean, this is the first alarm bell that this is, the stereotypical cult. Oh, well, she's pregnant because of the blessings of Dukat.
Yeah, where they could have done more with this, but we basically find out that Dukat has loads of laws and loads of rules they need to follow, and you're just like, hang on. And Kira pointed out later of basically being like, this is just you trying to do the occupation again, but in a nicer way, so that people don't realize they're in a prison.
The way she says it, because he's like, we are building a community, and she's like, oh, come off it. You are just the power race. This whole power, it's giving you what you want. It is giving you a station. It is giving you power and control. But this time, as opposed to when you had Teroknor, DS9, the people do love you.
Yeah.
So you are getting what you want. But we'll get to that scene, because that is...
And this is the power of... this is the power of politics, the power of sort of propaganda, is the idea of making people not realize they're subjugated. It's the idea of, if you put someone in a prison, they're going to fight against it because they know that they're in a prison. They can see the walls. Whereas if you make people go like, hey, look, do this thing for me. It's really nice. Just don't have sex because of religion and stuff like that. And they'll get you all this cool stuff in the future and whatnot. It's like going, that is still the same thing. You're still stopping them doing stuff. You're still taking away their freedom. But because you're doing it with a nice voice, they're more willing to follow you and not rebel. And it's like we have in the country, where we won't rebel against an oppressive government or an oppressive regime because we have our creature comforts, we have our televisions, we have our, all of these nice things or whatever. And yet you're still like, but we are still wage slaves to everything. And there's absolutely nothing we can do to change the system or have a say in the system.
But then
that's the scary thing.
I drew parallels with the scene in the temple, the service, where Kira pulls the gun on Dukat, and all the cultists basically gang up on her and act as human shields. And they're
willing to give up their lives for him.
I drew a lot of parallels with, obviously, the cults of the 90s, but also what happened in America on January the 6th. After the election, and it's sort of...
Well, it was a cult. The whole QAnon thing, it was literally...
still is.
It was a cult of personality.
It still is.
Is QAnon still around?
The cult of Trump. It's still a cult. He... I will be there...
Which annoys me, because you want... I want good cult leaders, okay? If someone's going to be a cult leader, I want them to be handsome as fuck, have a massive cock, able to convince anyone of anything. And you look at Trump and you're just like, the only way you can think he's got the best good ideas is if you have put a drill in your temple. It's...
So you want Lee as a cult leader? This is what you're saying?
No, we can't have Lee versus Paul thing. We have to...
we can have
maybe.
A cock off. But with
Can we have a cock off?
Can we have a cock off? But again, with Trump, where it's just like, you must do, I will be there to rally with you, 20 miles behind you, but I will be there. He wasn't. And again, it parallels, it's cultish behavior. It is cultish behavior. And
it's because people feel lost. People feel lost. They feel like they don't have a...
But they prey on the insecurities and the vulnerabilities and the times. Oh, well, if I'm not in power, then these people are going to cross the border and take your jobs. And it's just like, no, they won't. And it's he who shouts the loudest gets heard the most. But it's just never underestimate the power of stupid people in large numbers as well. So,
But yeah, I
but
mean,
with
we get it in this episode where it's the idea of where no, I've forgotten the point I was
no,
making.
but
Sorry.
when they knock her out after she's pulled the gun, and he just goes over to her and he goes, "Now do you understand how much they love me?" And
Yeah.
you're just like, "Fuck, dude, you have got
He is
what
loving
you
it. Like
yeah."
he is absolutely loving this position he's got himself in, but then he still has to fuck it up because he wants more. And it's
Yeah.
this emotional greed he has. Like, and I think in the next scene, because obviously we have a scene there where basically they relax their guard a little bit. Kira pulls a gun on him, and then everyone basically stands in front of Dukat and basically is willing to
We get
die
that great
for him.
exchange. Yeah, we get that great exchange between Dukat and Kira, and this is what we were
But
saying earlier
but
on.
but the thing is in the scene with the gun, we get to see how fucked up, like how shocked Kira is. Like Kira thought these were just stupid people, or that he lied or something, or that, they were just desperate or something. And then she actually sees because throughout this episode, she has a bit of a crisis of faith by being like, wow, they genuinely do believe his bullshit.
Yeah,
Like they
yeah.
genuinely are willing to give their lives for him. And she's never viewed Dukat in this way. She's always, because her hatred of him through the occupation, because she knows exactly what he is and who he is, she's immune to this. But then it's the idea of she just goes, wow. And she gets an insight into how he can trick people, like how clever and manipulative he is, which I think is just a
But
great thing to
again,
mention
this
about that
this
scene.
episode draws parallels to modern politics in the 2010s and the 20
Yeah,
in the
like
2020s.
this is the thing. The January 6th, that whole thing, I was Kira because I'm one of these people who's like, Donald Trump, who the fuck would vote for him? What an
Yeah,
absolute idiot. Like he can't even say a sentence properly. Like
yeah,
he's genuinely just making stuff up. He's the most transparent, like rich idiot, with no clue about anything ever. And then you see that people are willing to do these things for them. But it's genuinely like when that happened, or when Trump won the election in the first place, and then when January 6th happened, I was just like, I was Kira. I was the one staring in disbelief, being like, there's something wrong with my worldview that I missed this, you
yeah.
know?
And you get to that sudden realization that, holy crap, this is 2021. Why is this happening in a developed nation? And you're like, surely no one could be that. And then you look and you go, oh shit, they thoroughly, deeply believe the rhetoric that he's putting out, and they are willing to do whatever he says. I drew a lot with this episode, and obviously what happened on January 6th and the cult of Trump altogether. I drew a lot of parallels with Far Cry 5, which is one of my most favorite games of all
I was
time.
waiting for Far Cry
But
5
this is the
to
thing,
start.
like the scene at the beginning of the game where they go to arrest the father, Joseph Seed, and they take him to the helicopter, and the cultists literally clamber in, on, and around the helicopter, throwing their bodies into the blades of the helicopter to slow it, to prevent it from taking off. And then you get possibly the most chilling and greatest line in video game history, where this cult leader, this charismatic, enigmatic leader, stares you directly into your eyes, into your soul, no blinking, no flinching, and just goes, no one is coming to save you. And that scene where she's knocked out and he just whispers, now do you understand how much they love me? His conviction of this is it's so believable that it makes him more terrifying.
But this is the thing about Dukat. Dukat believes his bullshit. Like,
Yeah.
he genuinely, like, it's this thing we have. What's the wonderful episode where we basically have Dukat and Cisco stranded on the planet?
Oh shit!
I
Yes, I
forgot what the
remember that.
episode. I
Yes.
think it's called. It's not duet. It's a. But yeah, But basically, we have Dukat telling Cisco about the occupation from his point of view of going, look, I made that better, and that people need to worship me because I'm amazing.
Yeah.
Like, and it's, obviously paraphrasing, but it's this idea of, and Cisco gets to see this, like Kira does
yeah.
here, that he genuinely believes this. This isn't like him going, oh, I'm really beautiful. Please tell me I'm beautiful. Please, like, oh, like give me likes, give me TikTok thing follows and stuff like that. Ducat genuinely believes that he's amazing, and and that everyone else is at fault. So every single time anything goes wrong for Ducat, it's not his fault because he's perfect. It's the people that failed him, the people who didn't love him enough. And that's terrifying, genuinely.
But his validation, his entire aim of bringing Kira there is revealed where he says, and as we mentioned earlier, if I can get through to your heart, if I can open your heart to the power race, I can convince any Bajoran. And he could have millions in his cult. If he does not have Kira on his side, he will remain a failure in his own head. His goal is to make Kira love him and believe him and revere him, because that's in his head. That's when he knows he is, he has achieved what he wants. He has achieved full and devout worship and love. And the next scene.
Oh, wait, Kelly's got it. It was Waltz. That's the episode I'm talking about. Waltz. Yeah, and it's this idea, and he doesn't want Kira. He wants the trophy that is Kira.
Yeah.
He doesn't care about her or her likes or anything. Like, there's bits where he puts on a facade of being interested in her personally or trying to do things specifically. Like, he even tries to court her in earlier seasons and stuff and tries to be super nice. But at the heart of it, she is literally just a trophy.
But
and it's
that subsection.
People exist like this.
Yeah, it's that subsection of Bajorans who are battle hardened, who see through that bullshit. And his challenge is, if I can get through to just one, the rest will fall like dominoes. And he thoroughly believes that's what he wants to do. And it ultimately becomes his own undoing, because his narcissism has consumed him so much that the logical side is sort of like, well, hang on. If we do this, everything could come tumbling down. And he's like, no, I am so good. Look at what I have created over this last year that I could convince Kira. And it's that arrogance of believability that I can convert Kira. I can make Kira and people like her love me because I have done it on a level where I have formed a community. And we see that he believes his own bullshit, even in the most awkward of situations. When Mika falls into labor, she gives birth. And
hold on.
Oh,
Before we do that bit, I just want to say, in this scene here where Kira wakes up from being knocked out, she realizes that she's been undressed. And Ducat is like, oh yeah, I had to undress you in order to like dress your wound. And it's just how freaky and rapey that is.
Oh yeah,
she's just like going, okay, right, like
sits on the sofa opposite him with her back, like away from him, so that she, he can't get around her. She is in a corner.
The body language in the scene and the way it's filmed is absolutely wonderful. But he says something which I think is the most terrifying line in the whole thing, because there's all this subtext to it, where he says to her, "Your anger is a challenge." Like, imagine having a girl say no to you. Imagine having a girl say no to you, or a girl lash out at you because you're coming on too strong, and someone responding with that kind of attitude of, oh, I'll win you round, rather than listening to what she wants. Like, it is the most rapey, horrible thing in the entire world, and it makes me a little bit like sick that Ducat is like that to Kira throughout, where he genuinely, thinks he's got a chance, and won't take no for an answer.
Let's move on to Micah's baby.
Yeah. Micah's baby. It's like Rosemary's Baby, but spoonier.
Because again, this is another terrifying reveal for Kira, where it is revealed that the baby is half Cardassian. And we see, obviously, Mark Alimo is a brilliant actor and he portrays Dukat perfectly. And we see the calculations in Dukat's head as he sees the baby. He looks at her, does not move his head, looks at her, takes with panic, but immediately has devised a plan to justify what has happened. And it is so, from the outset, it is so flim-flam, and it is so, oh, come on. But to convince devout worshippers, oh, this is a message from the prophets, that because I am here, we have got, their baby has revealed themselves, it's merged.
Yeah, he's like, oh, it is a symbol of our covenant, my covenant with you, that this baby is like, looks like me and stuff. And you can see the acting, it's absolutely phenomenal in this scene, because you see Vedic Fala basically being like being a little bit like, okay, slightly shaken, but we'll deal with this. We see the father of Mika's husband basically being like, okay, it's
the seeds of doubt.
It's a thing.
Have started
the
to
seeds
be
of doubt,
planted.
and Mika is terrified. Mika is genuinely like, oh God, how do I do this? Like, this is, it's so wonderful, and it shows like how it must be in cults, like, surely, like, I'm like, obviously I'd like to think I'm not easily sort of convinced or too gullible or whatnot, but the idea of you're in an organization with loads of people and someone comes to you and says, oh, we have to go to the mothership tomorrow because that's a real thing, so we have to shed off our physical core, like our physical. If someone came up to me and said something like that, I'd be like, you fucking what? Like, and it's one of these things though, but it's, until you're in that situation, I guess you can't understand
Well, look
it,
at look at Scientology. You just have to look at Scientology. Anyone with a rational mind can look at that and go, I don't know, it's a bit of a flim-flam religion. You have to pay to move to the next level. This is just Fortnite with extra terrifying text.
Yeah, but basically Scientology is DLC before EA monopolized it.
It's EA religion, and it's just, but people believe in it.
Can't make you taller, Tom Cruise. Just saying, and it can't make you straight. Anyway,
you can't catch me, gay thoughts. But they believe, and to the rational mind, from the outside, you go, that's bullshit, that's crap. But we are not in that situation. And I often think about this, because I consider myself to be not intelligent, but rational, and be able to, oh, this is a scam. We can, I can detect a scam, tiny little scams here and there and stuff like that. Like, I was in San Francisco, and the baseball match had ended, and everyone was walking out, and I was trying to get an Uber, and there was no Uber for like 20 blocks, because obviously everyone was leaving, and there was a mass exodus, blah, blah, blah. So all the Ubers were taken, which is fair enough. But then you're walking down the street, and there was a car with an Uber sign flashing, and he's like, Uber, and I'm like, right, okay, I'll do the app. And he wasn't showing up on the app, and I'm like, you're not showing up. Oh no, I've turned it off. Bullshit. And you're like, you see, you look at it and you make a deduction, right? If he's not on the app and yet he is right in front of me, why is his car not on the app? Why is it going up? But then I get worried, where I'm like, could I, much like Cultist, be brought in, be pulled in by these charismatic people who are so highly trained and experienced in car dealers and phone dealers and stuff like that, where they are trained to analyze your body language, your words, your emotions, and they know how to exploit the vulnerabilities if there are any there, and if there isn't, and you're just like, could I be duped into
But
this?
this is the thing. It's very easy. It's very human to be gullible and be tricked. I mean,
Yeah,
I'm just I'm really pedantic, which is what kind of gets me sort of like safe, but there's no way I'm immune to all of it kind of thing. Like, like
yeah,
I mean, that's the thing. It's like I have a weird thing in my mind where when I see an advert for something, and if I see the advert too much, I make a mental note never to buy that product because it's pissed me off. So it's really odd. Like there's so many things off YouTube where I'm like, oh, seen Grammarly too much, never going to use that service, but I'll look for
Oh,
an
I use
alternative if I ever need
Grammarly. I
if I
use
ever need a
Grammarly.
service like that, I'll look for one, but I'll deliberately not use Grammarly because that's how my brain works.
I
But
don't
it's
pay
also
for it, so it's fine.
it's also the idea of like with politicians, where you get loads of politicians where they're like, oh, they've changed, where they basically just go, like we have loads of stuff like you can look at someone's voting history, always look and judge people by their actions, not by their words. That's
Yeah,
the way I live my life. So it's
yeah,
the idea if you get like someone like sort of Theresa May, I think it was, who was just basically going, oh, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do this and stuff. And then you look at a voting record over the years and you're like, what you're saying now is totally contrary to everything you have ever done in the past.
yeah,
Like stuff like Keir Starmer, where you go, you're you are bullshit. Like all of this is absolute fucking bullshit, and you're just saying stuff in order to, like,
yeah, yeah.
get into power. And that's the same as everything. It's like, hey, you're trying to sell me this car. What car do you drive? Why don't you drive this one? Okay, right. So you're just trying to make a sale.
It's yeah, and you
But
sit
people don't
there.
tend to think that hard. Like that's why we have people who believe in a flat Earth because they don't actually peel any layers off the onion.
Yeah, and it's and like I said, you feel evolved in some ways where I would never fall for that, but then you're like, what if there is that?
But there was one time when I got fooled, okay, and I feel really annoyed about it because this guy, okay, came up to me and and I thought, and I thought I was like, okay, I'm gonna get some like, kinky sex kind of thing. And then he got me into his big dirty van and it was just full of fucking puppies. And I was like, what am I gonna do? What? Like it was absolute nightmare. It was the worst grinder date I've ever been on.
I was duped once, and unfortunately, I now host a podcast about Star Trek. But
You were in it for the puppies.
78-year contract for some reason. But the when Dukat meets Mika in the airlock, and you see like this other side of this cult leader, he's like, "Why didn't you tell me that it was mine?"
Oh yeah, sorry. We'll just say this. Basically, what happens is after the awkward situation with the baby, Dukat fucks everything up by basically going, "Hey, Mika, we need to have a secret meeting to discuss all of this because, like, just to kind of make sure we're on the same page and don't say anything, kind of thing." And so meets her at an airlock, and she basically writes her own, like, signs her own death warrant because he basically says to her, like, "Oh, can you keep it a secret?" And she's like, "I don't think I can lie to my husband, and he's going to
No,
figure it out."
yeah.
And then immediately Ducat's just like, "Well, you need to die," like.
Enjoy no oxygen, but it's the way he does it. It's the way where he slowly walks out and then he slowly shuts the door.
He wastes. This is what's so scary, though. He holds her shoulders and says, "Okay, I'm gonna go off now, so it doesn't seem suspicious." Like he has this whole story.
Mm.
I'm gonna go off, so it doesn't seem suspicious. You just wait here and pray and stuff like that. And he knows he's gonna kill her.
Yeah,
Why does he give her this weird spiel rather than just going out the door, like just walking straight away from her and pressing the button to close the door?
yeah,
And that's the crazy thing about Ducat. He's genuinely still trying to, he would be telling you that everything's fine as he pulls the knife on you and
yeah.
starts stabbing you.
Because he
That's
believes what
so,
he's doing is right.
yeah.
But again, what he believes this, but then there is another part of him where his insecurities are battling to basically say this woman could fuck up everything.
Yeah.
She has to go. And he's not thinking, well, how do we explain and he's calculating in his head, if we do this, how could we explain that she did this? Did she unalive herself? Was there a technical issue? Was there this? And he is doing this, and the fact that he has to watch her die keeping him there whilst Kira and Fila are looking for her, because they've already spoken to Benyon, her husband, about, you know, the baby and stuff like that. And the line that Kira goes, you know, did you ever practice? Did you ever pray alone with Dukat? Yes, I did. Did Mika? And again, it's that tiny little plant. But then when they find, because they hear the alarm, the O2 sensor alarm going off, so they're running. He does a runner, Dukat does a runner, and then they save Mika. She's very badly hurt, you know, she's deprived of oxygen, but she survives. And Dukat,
but she's in a coma.
But she's in a she's not in a coma. She's in an induced coma, and she will come out of it the next day, which leads to his ultimate plan. Because obviously he goes to the infirmary and he's like, you know, pray be to the Parish that we must pray for her that she is all right and she will recover. I want all the airlocks checking on the habitat ring. I want to make sure of this and this. And
the doctor's like, oh yeah, she's going to be fine. Yeah. You know, and he's like, oh.
But then Kira's just like, oh, come on. You know, she finally snaps and she's like, you know, were you scared that she was going to reveal that you are the real father of her child and stuff like that? And you can see in Dukat's face where he's just like, you are undoing everything that I have worked hard to achieve.
But this is, he's blaming her. You can see in his face that he's going, you are undoing everything I've worked to achieve. And it's like, no, Dukat. She is just saying the things that you've done. Like, she is literally, you know, this is the weird thing. It's like people complaining about whistleblowers and being like, oh, whistleblowers destroyed everything. And I'm like, no, the events that they're talking about are what fucked everything up. You know,
they've already happened. They are just telling you about it.
Yeah, it's that
you
crazy
can't shoot
thing of
the messenger.
You know how you could have stopped that happening, not doing the things that the whistleblower mentioned. You know, it's like,
and we see that, I think the most terrifying scene is where Dukat is alone praying to the Power-Wraiths. And
I made a big note of this. Like, this is the big turning point, because there's been is he just doing this for power? Does he really believe his bullshit on this? And we actually see, because when I was rewatching this, I was fully expecting the camera to pan round and he knew, and there was someone else there and he was putting on a show for someone else, or Kira was there and he was trying to do that. And he's not. He is entirely alone. He's not being watched, and he's praying to the Par-Wraiths, which tells you that his faith is real. So having this Par-Wraith inside him has given him a connection to them. Because we see with Kai Wynn that they can give visions the same as the prophets.
But here's the thing. This vision, was it a vision, or was it Dukat's subconscious trying to justify a way out of the situation so that he comes out on top, he comes out as a martyr, and that he can escape the situation before things are revealed? Because
we don't see a vision.
No, we don't.
Like, all we get here is we see Dukat praying and pleading to be told what to do.
Yeah.
And then it cuts. So what I think effectively happens is that the Par-Wraiths spoke to him once, obviously, he was possessed by one. They maybe sent him a vision. They don't give a shit what he's doing now. You know, like they've got, I think there's only one in existence at the moment, isn't there? One was
because
released, the other is still in the fire cave.
Yeah, need to be released from the caves,
But it's this idea of, like, I think he just goes, oh, well, I didn't get a vision back, so I'm just going to convince myself that this is the right way to go. And oddly enough, it's the one that suits him. Because if the Par-Wraiths had given him a vision and said, yeah, you need to go with the rest of them, Dukat would have probably not done it. You know,
because he convenes.
Or would he? That's the thing.
But he convenes a service of the members, and he says, now, you know, they have sent me a vision, and it will be the last vision I ever receive, because they want us to transcend our flesh and bone and help retake the celestial temple. We must essentially transcend this mortal coil and join the fight with the Par-Wraiths. And by tomorrow, at this time in the morning, you know, ironically, when Mika comes round and reveals, you know, Dukat tried to off me, you know, they will all be dead. And then the conversation that he has with Kira, where she's like, I can't believe that you will, you know, you will do this and you will kill yourself and stuff like that. And he reveals, you know, it's the pill that the Obsidian Order gives, where it's a swift death, and then within a few hours there is nothing but ash. And then the conversation that he has with Kira, where she finally is convinced.
This is the thing. It's this. This is the problem with Dukat. He knows he's both of them. He wants people to believe that he believes, but he actually doesn't believe. And it's, you know, like I mean, I wrote down like the fact of you know, where we see on Kira's face that she actually goes, oh shit, you're serious. You actually do believe in the power race. You are actually worshipping them, and you are actually going to kill yourself. And basically he's not facing her, but we get to see that he smiles.
Yeah.
He goes, I've got her. I've convinced her.
Yeah.
You know, and it's this, but it's so good.
If Dukat takes nothing away, he has got the fact that he has got Kira convinced.
He gets her a few times though. He gets earlier in DS9, he makes her start to question whether he has had a change of heart.
Yeah.
Like, remember when it's like when you have, what's it, Torazial, his daughter.
Yeah.
That, you know, Kira starts being like, we have a couple of episodes where Kira starts going, oh, maybe you are actually changing, maybe you are become better, and then he fucks it all up. And then here we go, we have Kira, and this is the problem. He does actually nearly win, but then he just doesn't have the patience to do the game, you know, like he fucks it up, you know.
But this leads me back to obviously my original thing, where he would have won if Kira wasn't there.
Yeah.
But his narcissism was his own undoing, because we see that he locks Kira in her quarters, and he sent a message to Deep Space Nine, you know, they'll be there in a day or so and it'll all be over. And then we see that he's giving out the pills, and one of the chilling things is obviously Benyon walks in with his baby and he just takes 2 pills. And for me, that's a chill. To see that in the 90s, that's a chilling thing, because it's like, oh shit, straight up just going to kill the baby.
Yeah. It's very frightening, the whole concept.
Kira breaks out, and the service is about to thing, and Dukat's got
they're
the
literally
pill.
all there. Dukat's got his pill in his hand.
Like,
all the rest of them have their pills in their hand.
Yeah, but I love that she jumps off the second deck of the bar, jumps onto Dukat, knocks the plate over with the rest of the pills, and then we just see Dukat, like right there in the scene there, in that last frame, Dukat hurriedly looking for his pill. They get him up to his feet, and Feeler's just like, don't worry, master, don't worry. Everything's okay. We've got
gets another pill from the thing and hands it to him, and Dukat just looks at it terrified.
Yeah.
And then Kira's like, oh, what's wrong? They are all the same, aren't they?
Take the pill, Dukat.
Yeah, and then everyone, and this is where everyone realizes, and they go, but this is the problem. It's the fact of this is Dukat, like, fucks this up, because basically, rather than like putting it in his mouth and not swallowing or something like that, he literally goes, oh no, I was never meant to join you. I've got work still to be done and stuff. And then immediately people start going bullshit, and, you know, arguing with him, fighting back against him and whatnot. And this is the crazy thing, because we get like Dukat's final bits is basically him screaming at them, like screaming at them that our covenant is broken. None of you will know the true love of the power wraiths. And he genuinely believes this. He genuinely is a follower of the power wraiths, which is crazy, you know?
Yeah, it's he like I said, having Kira there was his own undoing, but his narcissism needed Kira to love him, needed Kira to be convinced by him. And it just falls down like a house of cards straight away when he refuses to take the pill. Oh, the pirates want me to bring other followers into our thing. Oh, I've still got a purpose here. And they just turning him on a dime, start throwing the pills. You are a fraud. You are a false god. And he just beams away. So
Well, I love though that despite how strong he pretends his faith is, he still has a hidden transporter thing to get him out of trouble because he knows
Well, what?
that it might go bad. Like his
But
faith is not strong enough in these people. Like his faith in the Wraith seems to be pretty strong, but his faith in his people is not strong.
but was his original plan to kill off the cult and then gather more? What was the original plan?
Hmm. I don't think there was a plan. Like it's the idea of I think the whole plan was okay, burn this bridge, like sort of get all of them killed and then just run away and then
Right.
start something
So
new.
so say so
I don't think it was ever a plan. I don't think he ever had it in his mind to kill people because he needs to be adored.
yeah, so the actual master plan was establish a community on Empok Nor where he is the divine leader. Essentially, like Kira said earlier in the episode, you have got your station, you have
Mhm.
got the power, you have got the control, but this time you have got people that love you.
Mm.
That was his goal. That was his whole drive to do this. It went awry because, he dipped his wick.
Kira. Well, it's not Kira's fault. It's
No,
literally
he dipped
someone
his
calling
wick,
him out on his bullshit.
but he dipped his wick.
Yeah.
He slept with one of the cultists, she fell pregnant, and it was half Cardassian. He was his own undoing in the whole situation, but still he does not take the blame. He does not accept the fact that it is his fault. It is everyone
Yeah.
else's fault but his.
Yeah, for
And
failing him.
yeah, for failing him. But just he he's completely, and I think this is probably the first episode of this series, and obviously since the whole Pyrethic, where we just see he is devout in his belief of the Paris, because Dukat as an enemy of the week or anything like that. Oh, what scheme is he up to now? And this is just like, no, he is like 100% convinced. And when the
Yeah.
audience hear Kira say that she, like, you actually believe this, don't you?
Yeah.
When Kira is convinced, the rest of us are convinced, and that makes Dukat as an enemy more terrifying.
This is the whole thing. It's the fact of like Kira points out, like he's somehow scarier that he believes in this.
Yeah.
Like, it's the fact of when it was just a trick, when it was all just a trick and he was making bullshit up for people, it was one thing, but the fact that he's actually believes this is terrifying,
Yeah.
It, I think what we're missing though is the fact of, which I think is one of the best moments of it, is that all the cultists basically freak out and they sort of throw the pills back at Dukat. They refuse to go ahead with it. But we see Vedek, is it Fella?
Vedic
Fala?
fella. Yeah.
Vedek Fala, and he basically takes his pill and he swallows it. And then Kira's with him in his dying moments, saying, why did you do it? And he basically just says, faith, Nerys, faith. Like it's the idea of, and it's that moment of him being like, is he offing himself because he knows that it's fucked up, like it's broken his world that he could be tricked like this, or is it that at the end of it all, no matter what, he actually believes that in Dukat and that this was actually the plan.
I genuinely believe that Vedic fella believed Dukat, believed in, obviously he believed in the Paris.
Well, we see his faith waver, and
Yeah.
because the after the baby thing, basically Nerys calls him up on it and basically says, "You can't actually believe that that's not Dukat's kid,"
Yeah.
and he just goes, "I can believe in anything because I have faith."
Yeah.
And it is that crazy thing of like going, when we just go, how can you believe the earth is flat? Or how can you believe that like sort of, gays are evil or something? And it's like, oh, I just have faith. I have an ability inside myself to connect dots without any actual rhyme or reason because I believe there's a connection there.
But even then, when they're having that argument about the baby, and he's like, the prophets destroyed an entire Dominion fleet.
Yeah.
that in itself is a bigger miracle than a baby being half Bajoran and half Cardassian by two Bajoran parents.
Which is a weird thing because I was like, I don't get that line because effectively he's like, hey, the Par Wraiths are the true power, but then he just kind of goes like, oh, but yeah, the prophets are more powerful, and you're a bit like, okay,
Yeah,
it's like so, because it is very odd, like when you, because obviously we in real life we don't really have acts of God appearing, we don't really have sort of miracles happening on a day-to-day basis that you could look at and go, oh, that's proof that God exists, or that's proof that this religion is true. But then in DS9, we literally have the prophets doing shit that massively helps Bajorans. And you're like, how can you still believe in the Par Wraiths are the good guys when they haven't done anything noticeable? And yet, like, it's weird for him to bring that up as an example and say, hey, the prophets have done this, but the why is it so strange that the Par Wraiths can make a.
faith.
Yeah, that's it. But it is. I just think it's wonderful. Like this whole episode is absolutely wonderful. And sorry that we've gone on about it so long, guys. Sorry that I've taken it in weird tangents and brought politics and other things in, but this is the joy of DS9. DS9 allows us to discuss these wider topics far greater than any other Star Trek series.
Yeah.
Like we get to do it with the original series, we get to do it with like Voyager, we get to do it with Enterprise, but DS9 is one of these things where it just goes, no, here is a whole fucking situation you can have. Like the next episode after this one on Just a Paper Moon is an incredible
It's such a
commentary on
powerful.
PTSD
It is a
and
powerful episode.
yeah, and this is why everyone needs to watch DS9. It is so fucking good. And like this episode where like, wow, I'm gushing about how amazing it is that we get to see people like Vedek Fowler and that he can be a good guy who's misguided if he is, because I don't know, because the Par Wraiths are real and we kind of see that they're evil, but we don't know that they're evil. It's a weird one. It's like we literally and the fact is, if we tie it back to what Kira says at the beginning of the episode, of as long as it brings them comfort, as long
Yeah.
as it brings you something, believe whatever you want. And yet she doesn't allow this to apply to Vedic Fala or
Yeah. This is what
Dukat.
this is what I was wanting to mention where at the beginning of the episode, believe what you want to believe as long as it gives you comfort and joy, but you can't believe in the Pirates. They are evil. And you sort of have to highlight her hypocrisy
Yeah.
in that, where it's just you literally said to people they can believe in whatever they want to believe if it brings them comfort. Here you have a prime example of an entire community believing in the Pirates and thriving and happy and joyous, and yet you cannot live with that because it disagrees fundamentally with your religion. So it's like, well, does that make Kira a hypocrite?
This is the wonderful thing though, where it's the fact of Kira is the good guy in this episode, but she's not pure. Like she's
No.
not like totally good. It's the fact of Kira. Kira is a flawed character where Kira, she starts off being this horrendous, like sort of hates everyone. She like refuses to cooperate with people. She's like a proper sort of like what's the word? Like a loaded loose cannon.
Yeah.
Like and then she mellows out over the course of the show because of the relationships that she's been able to build within it and like what she's experienced. But there's still this idea of this episode is a commentary on religion isn't always good. Like religion
Yeah.
is always a double-sided sword. And that what gets you through will also color your view of the world and your interactions with other people. That's
Yeah.
how I view it, I think.
Yeah.
And but it's the same as getting through anywhere. Like it's the fact of if you're entirely scientific, like I don't want to fall down the bucket of going, "Oh, science is a religion," because that is a stupid statement. But it's this idea of if you are entirely logical and entirely scientific, you go down the Vulcan route, which is that you don't really live, you don't really experience life at all, and you like we saw in with was it Sarek in Enterprise, the episode we covered. it actually hinders you. It actually, you know, being perfectly logical basically stops you being open to possibilities and you become arrogant as fuck, you know?
It's a great, because we are not crapping on religion, and we are not saying that religion is bad. There is, and DS9 basically explains you can have a balance of both science and religion, and you need to look at the great scientists throughout history. They have all been religious people. Einstein, Newton, they have all been religious people that still believe in science.
Yeah.
And DS9 sort of highlights that. And you see people like Benjamin Sisko, Starfleet officers, scientists through and through, who get faith, have faith. They know that the prophets are non-corporeal wormhole entities, but it's the faith that they deliver, they encourage in the Bajoran people, that sort of opens him up. You know, this is a man whose father has a restaurant in New Orleans. You know, he's an engineer, he builds starships, and he's just like, by the end of it, I'm going to retire to a little bit of farmland on Bajor.
Yeah.
And you know, I didn't want to be an emissary, and then he's warmed to the idea. He's become this symbol of hope for the Bajoran people, and it just shows that with science, you don't necessarily have to completely denounce religion. You can still be a spiritual or religious person. It does not take away that you believe in evolution. And this is the thing with Charles Dickens.
I think this is the whole thing. It's not about, life is not about being right. It might give you comfort to know that you're in the right, but it's all the idea of enjoy life, enjoy living, enjoy the trappings of living, you know?
Yeah.
Like that's what I think life is all about. And it's this idea of believe in silly stuff, believe in stuff that you can't justify. Don't say, oh, there isn't a God because I can't see it and I can't test it. Like,
Yeah.
you know, I can scientifically come from the point of going, I don't believe in a God because of the moral ramifications, because it's the idea of there's a God. That means he's responsible for all the terrible stuff, right? Okay, but you know, I get into that kind of logical thing.
Yeah.
But it's this idea of believe in the fun stuff. Like shit things. Go, hey, this band might actually technically be rubbish and everyone hates them, but I love them, and just live by that. We don't have to be good people. We just have to be people. You know, and I think that's how I see it. It's the idea we all need to have that little bit about us that's like, you know, oh, Graham's great, you know, and nice and stuff at this, but then have bad sides, have things that people can complain about and be a person, I think. I don't know, I went off on one there, sorry, but it's
this has been an episode, and I have absolutely loved every single second of it, because this Covenant was an episode that I originally thought was brilliant anyway, but then when you go to analyze it, like an onion, has got so many layers, and
we could still talk about this for another 2 hours.
We were debating having a part
we haven't
two.
even mentioned shit. Like once you're done, could I have a little quick spin through of random points I need to make? But yeah.
Do you know what? Go ahead, do it now.
Okay. Thing is, this is another great episode. One of the notes I got. Great episode because it's another just earning their paycheck episode. There are two characters in this episode, and that is Dukat and Kira. The whole episode is centered around them, and there are other characters, new characters around them. The other DS9 crew people, like our regular characters, aren't there. Everyone. Odo has 3 scenes. He's in. Everyone else is in 1 scene.
Yep.
And they've cleverly written it so everyone gets to appear at least for 1 scene and get their paycheck, which is them once again being amazing like writers, amazing sort of like people. And it's, you know, we have an opening scene where we see Esri and Dr. Bashir, and Odo and Quark, and they're never seen again for the rest of the episode. And then in the middle, we have an episode with Sisko, the captain, like, who is meant to be the main character, is in 1 scene, basically going, how did Kira get kidnapped? How did we allow this to happen? And Chief O'Brien's in the background and stuff. and Worf appears to say some things, and it's just wonderful that they managed to go. DS9 does not need the whole cast
No.
all the time, and that is absolutely fucking wonderful. The other things I wanted to mention is that I give a lot of credence to Trek, but there are a lot of plot holes in this episode. There are fuck tons of plot holes in this episode. Like stuff where you're like, okay, I get that you're telling a fun story, but like, okay, I think Kira says the orb experience, where like Odo's like, oh, maybe if I had an orb experience, then I would have faith and I could come to the ceremonies with you and stuff. And she goes, no, you need to have faith for that. And I'm like, no, you
No, you
don't.
don't.
Like,
Yeah.
we have loads of characters throughout DS9 who aren't religious. Like, Quark has an orb experience.
Cisco.
Like, so yeah, Cisco is like going, what the fuck? And it's just a bit of a weird thing where you're like, yeah, Odo literally could just go down to Bajor and be like, hey, can I look in the orb? Oh, that one's not working. I'll look at one of the other ones. One of them will trigger eventually.
Yeah.
Like, so it's a bit odd. Also, the speed that Dukat puts this like cult together and wins them over. How did this happen? This is the episode I want to see of. This is literally like Hitler becoming the president of Israel. Like, what
This is
amount of sweet talking had to happen for, these people to go, because it's not just a Cardassian. It's not just like any old Cardassian where they could go, hey, maybe he has seen faith and he has had a change of heart. This is literally the guy who led the occupation of Bajor, and people within about, what is it? We're talking about a 7-month period, I assume, since we last saw him?
Chronologically, the last time we saw Dukat, he killed Jadzia at the end of season 6.
Yeah.
Now, chronologically,
it's been less than a year.
We are looking. So there is I would say 8-9 months.
Yeah.
Between Jadzia dying and Kira meeting him on Empok Nor, which, again, I know the gestation period for Bajoran children is very short.
Yeah.
But he started a cult, got someone pregnant, and they were willing to die in the space of, say, 8 months, right?
Yeah. I class that as a plot hole.
Paul has been doing this
too quick.
Paul has been doing this for 3 years, and he cannot get anyone to drink the Kool-Aid. So I think Paul is failing as a cult leader.
How many half-Paul children are there in the world, though?
Too
That's what
many.
I want to say.
But it is like an impressive speed.
Yeah, that's it. I read that. And the other one is the teleport distance. The whole thing of that blows everything out the water. The fact that, they're like, oh, it's Dominion technology. That basically Kira has this tiny little thing and it teleports them 3 light years to the other side of the quadrant. No, not that far, but
Yeah.
And it's like, why do they never use this again? And how does it happen on on DS9 when the shields are up and stuff? Surely you could just win the war using this technology. So it's a plot device. It's never used or discussed ever again. It's a bit Doctor Who for me, I think. And the final thing I want to mention is the whole oh shit, what was it? Yeah, Empok Nor being empty. Why do we keep having this? Like, Empok Nor is the same as DS9, which is Terrak Nor, I think.
Yep.
It's a huge, huge space station full of technology that the last time we saw it, the only reason why it hadn't been taken apart by, like, raiders and stuff, or like people, raiding it for supplies, is because it has fuck tons of booby traps in that they need Garrick to get through.
Yeah.
But then this cult is set up here, and like it just seems weird that you would have something like Empok Nor empty in space with no one
in Dominion space where
taking
Dukat,
it over.
But because Dukat says, "Oh well,"
is the only reason why DS9 is so important? Because why is DS9 so important? Is it just because it's next to Bajor and it's in a handy place?
It's the location.
Or is it the technology?
It is the location. It's the DS9 is a strategic importance to the Federation because of its location to the wormhole, and in the later series, it is quite literally nearly on the front line of the war. So, as they explained, the transporter's got a 3 light-year range. Now, in Star Trek terms, that's not a lot of distance.
Yeah.
So what they're saying is that Empok Nor is 3 light years away from DS9, but Empok Nor is in Dominion territory, as Dukat explains, because the Dominion have no interest in a derelict station. And I'm just like, well, hang on. Really, it is a strategic must-have to have that station operational, because it is literally a stone's throw away from a Federation station.
It just, the whole thing just seems a bit like, that's convenient. And the reason why I'm pointing these things out is because usually there aren't things like this.
No.
Usually, but this is very much a kind of, these things need to happen because we need to tell this story.
Yeah.
And I'm willing to forgive them, but it is just a bit like, really? You know?
But on a whole...
Anyway, that's all I wanted to say. There's all my bits.
Yeah, on a whole, guys, this is a tremendous episode. Of my OBS is playing up. I might have to redo the dabble wheel. It was a tremendous episode for a tremendous series, and anyone would think, towards the end of a show that they would just be signing checks and getting rid of it. And no, this was like, this is a pinnacle example of Star Trek at its very best so late on in a show, considering, and let's be honest, season 7 of TNG, around about the halfway point, we got Sub Rosa.
the one of the greatest episodes ever. I'm sure everyone in the chat will agree.
Yeah, where season 7 of DS9 we got Covenant, and it's almost like, oh god, it's almost
it's
like
still here. I haven't tidied,
but it's almost like they learnt their lessons. But moving,
well, I think it was the idea of like, there wasn't a big plan for TNG. TNG was just like, hey, let's just keep going. And then they were like, hey, it's the last season. And they're like, okay, cool. DS9 was very much them going, we are telling this story and we know that we're going to do it.
It's 7 seasons.
Yeah. I think the only thing is, season 7 would have been even smoother had they not have had to do the Dax thing. Like, I'd say that's the only thing that trips it up and makes them go, oh, we need... If they hadn't done the Dax thing, and if they hadn't had to go, shit, we need Bashir to do shit because he's got nothing, and then they had to put in all of the Section 31 stuff, they're the only things that I think trip up season 7.
Oh, I love Section 31, though.
Oh, no, I like it, but it doesn't seem planned. Like, it doesn't seem part of the original scheme, Like, they didn't think Esri was going to come in. They didn't think Bashir was going to have the whole Section 31 stuff in. So they've worked it in best they can, but it does feel,
And again, everybody, DS9 was the only series in the Next Generation era, with the Mirror Universe and Section 31.
Voyager has it technically. Voyager has one episode.
It's an alternate time. It's like an alternate. It's a history, warping what really happened. But it is. I remember it as two pinnacle things that are featured in New Trek, as as some people call it, where the Mirror Universe and Section 31 both were last seen in Deep Space Nine.
Yeah,
and it just shows how pivotal that show actually is. However, we are receiving an incoming transmission.
Incoming transmission.
I'm really worried about this.
So am I.
I'm worried. Oh, hey!
Everything is broken again.
Everything is broken. I'm just gonna hold on. Hello. Right, I'm just gonna keep...
Okay, there you go.
I'm gone.
Right, you've gone. Oh no, what's going on?
Hello. Right, I'll get in the box.
Hello. I had all this set up, and I don't know why.
What's this doing? Fix me, Goodwill. Fix me.
God damn it, the U.S.S. adequate.
I'm getting smaller, Goodwill. You're not fixing it. I'm getting smaller.
Think of Lee.
Think of Lee. Oh, I've suddenly grown, and my arse grew 3 inches. 3 whole sizes. But yeah,
3 whole sizes. Oh god. Right. Anyway,
so the problem now is, despite the fact that it is actually, it's as likely as anything else, I guess. That's how statistics work. But it seems incredibly unlikely that we're going to get just a paper moon. Whereas that's kind of what I want to talk about now. But the fact of, I will be very pleased if the Dabo wheel goes, hey, here's the next exact episode out of like 400.
I will do you a deal. I will
Okay.
do you a deal. If we get the Siege of AR-558,
Yeah.
the week after, part 2 will be
Yeah.
only a paper moon, because I don't think you can discuss
Yeah.
one episode. I don't think you can discuss AR-558 without it's a paper moon, because
Well, we should do it different. We should do it where if we get one of those episodes, we do both of them in order.
yes, I
Yeah,
agree.
cool.
I absolutely agree. Welcome everybody to the double wheel of episodes. For those who have never seen Trekking Up North, where have you been and why are you joining us at episode 49?
It lasted 2 hours, you bastards.
You bastards. The double wheel of episodes has every episode of Star Trek programmed into it, without currently the original series, because we had way too many original series episodes in a row, and it does not have Star Trek Discovery yet. But whatever the double wheel lands on, we shout at the top of our lungs, Dabo. Although Synoiz's Zoom will noise cancel his
Dabo!
There we go. And whatever it lands on, we will review in next week's episode of Trekking Up North. Science Officer Synoiz, what are you hoping for next week?
Obviously, Code of Honor. Code of Honor is the main
not
one.
again, no.
But I just want more DS9. I'm sorry, it's selfish, but I just want more DS9 because my life is really, really difficult at the minute. Like, I'm so busy. I don't get a weekend this week. Like, I don't get a weekend, and then next week is like busy as fuck again. So I'm just literally looking blinkers on to April when all of this is done and over, and I can start planning my birthday and stuff. Yeah, so I just want episodes I'm going to enjoy. I don't want an episode that I'm going to be like, oh God, I have to watch that, and as well. Whereas that was the thing, watching Covenant, I literally watched it and then immediately was like, I need to watch more DS9. Like it makes me feel good. It makes me feel happy. So
Science Officer Synoiz is the hardest working person in the northeast of England.
as in, I'm working and I'm hard, highly.
Okay, so I think it's time to spin the wheel.
The thing is, like, usually I'll say to you, like, no, I don't work that hard. But this month, like, well, I had to explain to someone the other day who was like, oh, I want to do some stuff. And I'm like, I am next free. Hopefully next Thursday I get an evening off. But other than that, no. Like the next time will be the Thursday after that,
we are both, I think, for the next 2 months, incredibly busy.
Yeah.
I'm doing possibly 75 other podcasts on 20 million other YouTube channels, as well as working in Los Angeles in a month's time as well. Amazing. Producing a podcast from over there and doing other top secret things over there as well.
How are we going to do it? Like, we need to discuss like what's going to happen. So am I just going to have to stay up really late one day and then phone in or something?
I might just break into the studio and just sleep there and then just do it at the regular time, because it'll only be first thing in the morning over there. So I can just do it at like 7:30 p.m. English time, which will be 11:30 in the morning. So I can easily get drunk at 11:30 in the morning and talk about Star Trek. So it's absolutely.
I love that. That's a prerequisite of you doing a podcast.
Yeah. I must be drunk. I've only had one. I'm a professional.
But yeah, no, it's that thing. Like, this is the problem I've got, where technically from April 1st I am kind of free. Like, I actually, I don't have any gigs planned. My next gigs are like May and June, I think. But then the problem is I've allowed everything to back up, where I've basically told all the podcasts, oh yeah, I'll be a guest, but I'll be a guest in April. And then the problem is that it's going to mean that when it gets to April, I'm like, oh, I'm busy every fucking day because I'm on like this and this. So
Treks and Trekkers, look forward to the Synoiz World Tour, April 2024, coming to a podcast.
I'm tempted just to tell everyone to fuck off in April and then just sit and paint Warhammer for the whole month.
I'll just do
That's
that.
What I want to do.
Just film it. Just paint and just make eye contact with the camera as you do it. And just
You know, I need to paint, and then you need to just be behind me doing the gallery music from Tony Hart. Just going, boo, 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 boo.
Boo, 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 do, do, do.
That's it. Hold on,
Do,
we'll
do,
do it
do,
now.
do,
I've got my
do.
paints. I've got
Okay,
some
okay,
Warhammer
are you
here.
ready? We will spin
I've
the
got
wheel.
my
in a minute,
Warhammer. Okay, come on, everyone.
Are you ready?
There's no paint on the back.
Boo, 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 boo. Boo, 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 boo. Boo, boo,
And it's done.
boo, boo, boo. Aw.
There we go.
Do, 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 do.
Isn't it
Do,
addictive
do,
doing
do,
this
do,
one?
do, do, do.
I love the idea
Do,
that
do, 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 do.
the people listening to the audio only version of this podcast are going to be like, what the fuck is going on?
He's
Actually,
finally
if they haven't said that
snapped.
already today, I'll be very surprised.
Oh my god! Right,
The Dabble Wheel. Okay, let's
the
see.
Dabble
what fucking episode-
Wheel
What
and-
episode do you want?
the double wheel, and then we're going to have to do the poll.
Oh, we didn't do the poll.
We
did
didn't do the poll. Should we do the poll first before we spin the wheel?
Okay, cool.
Yeah,
Did we put it on Discord or did we not?
We did put
Ask
it on
Daddy
Discord.
Lee.
Computer, transfer everything back to the main because I'm shit at producing. Thank you. So, the poll, the question.
Almost like that wasn't a computer at all. It was almost like that was you pressing the button.
Shut up. The the question we asked on Facebook and on Discord and on Twitter. In the DS9 episode Covenant, whose faith gets tested the most? A. Kira's faith in the prophets. B. Fella's faith in the Power Wraiths. C. Dukat's faith as emissary of the Power Wraiths. D. The cult's faith in Dukat. I'm going to go first this week with Twitter because then I need to load up the Facey B. This was, for the longest time, split 3 ways. Exactly 3 ways. However, there has been a clear winner, and that is Kira's faith in the prophets.
That's interesting, yeah.
With the Fella's faith in the Power Wraith and Dukat's faith as emissary coming in second and third. Equal footing.
That's interesting because on the Discord one, because Daddy Lee has put it up.
Daddy!
Yeah. It's Kira's faith is in first place, and then in like distant second place is the cultists' faith in Dukat. No votes at all for Vedic Phallus or Dukat's faith. I'm interested by the Dukat's faith one.
Vedic phallic or phallus? Vedic
Vedic
phallus.
phallic.
PH.
Vedic Phallus, yes.
Oh,
He's dead now. It doesn't matter.
He's gone soft. Let me.
He's gone to a dusty end, I think.
Oh.
One thing I actually wanted to mention is, isn't there a big thing in DS9 about Cardassians and having proper funerals and bodies and stuff? Like,
Yes.
that the body is sacred. And it seems really weird that they created these pills that turn you into dust.
But
That
no,
seems like
those
the
are
most...
Cardassians. They were Obsidian Order. They weren't Bajorans.
Oh, sorry, no, that's what I meant. I meant, don't the Cardassians have an obsession with the body and burial and stuff?
Where is my poll on Facebook?
Ooh,
Daddy.
where is my poll?
Where is my poll?
See, Lee has to ask himself that, and he's expecting the answer in terms of a postcode or something.
There it is. Right. Ooh. Okay. Wow. On the Facebook, with 66% of the votes, Kira's faith in the prophets was the clear winner. In second place, with 33%, Dukat's faith as the emissary of the Power Wraiths, and with 1%,
What?
Vedic Phallus's faith in the Power Wraiths. 1%. One person
That's kind of
believes
crazy.
that the Vedic's faith was tested on Facebook. That is interesting.
I think that's interesting. I mean, this is the thing. Like, so let's discuss it. Like, Kira, like, is her faith tested because she realizes because she's able to draw parallels to going, wow, these people can believe in this absolute nonsense with such conviction. Is that what I'm like? Like, does she see herself mirrored in their sort of blind devotion?
I believe that
Like,
is the case. Yes.
yeah,
I do
because
believe
it's that thing, like the amazing expression she has when she realizes that these people genuinely believe what they're saying, and they believe in Dukat is, it's wonderful, because yeah, you can believe that, like, it's this idea, because I think a lot of religions rely on them being the true religion and there only being one right answer and them being the ones with it. And the idea of anything that is pro another religion is a blow to their religion.
Yeah.
And yeah, and it is quite interesting that, like, yeah, that Kira's faith is shaken by this. I mean, that's the wonderful thing, though, that like the later seasons are very much tests of Kira's faith, and that the writers said that if they ever continued DS9 or they went back to DS9, they would have Kira being a Vedic. They would have her being a Vedic, and they would have her possibly becoming Kai, so that when it all finishes, they wanted her to become, hey, I've been this military person, now I'm going to be a person of faith.
Interestingly enough, Kira in Star Trek Online, in the massive DS9 DLC that happened in 2018 for the 25th anniversary, became Kai.
Right, okay. I didn't know that, but I knew that that was the writer's intentions, is to go there with her.
So yeah, like Alan M said, it's a full circle. Right, shall we get this dabble wheel? Shall we get this dabble wheel spun? If I can find it. Where's my dabble wheel going? Spin, you bitch. There we go. Right. Okay, are we ready, everybody? We are going to spin in 3, 2, 1.
Come on, Code of Honor. Also Grocer again.
Anxiety building. Double! Star Trek The Next Generation Masterpiece Society. Let us get a synopsis.
I have no idea what this one is, and there's no picture because I didn't program one in.
You did not program a picture, you bitch. Masterpiece Society.
Masterpiece Society, what?
Season 5, episode 13. The Enterprise goes to the rescue of an unknown colony. The Enterprise goes to the rescue of an unknown colony, but is informed that the evacuation would destroy the perfection of its genetically engineered society.
I know this one. It's the one with the mayor and stuff, and yeah, I know this one.
I remember this one very well because this is a Troy-centric episode, more or less.
Yeah.
Wow, what a good
That's
episode.
Good. We haven't had a Troy episode
no,
yet,
we've not, and we do love Marina Sirtis. We do love Marina Sirtis. She's a wonderful human being. Computer, take us back to the main view screen. Thank you.
Okay, I'm looking forward to that. That's a good one.
That is brilliant. So, next week, everybody, Treks and Trekkers, boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, all over the world, we will be reviewing Star Trek The Next Generation, The Masterpiece Society. So, everyone who wants to watch along with us, get it on thou Netflix or Paramount Plus or wherever you receive your Star Trek. DVD, VHS, Blu-ray, Betamax. Dodgy up north.
Film tape, sellotape to a brick and chucked through your window.
Yes.
Yeah.
Rick Berman's handwritten notes smashed through your skull.
Staring into the eyes of a super fan and then being able to read it from their mind.
Me narrating it in a seductive language surrounded by candles. I am available. #candleslag. Wow.
We need to do that. What was the voice we did earlier? Like, we did the really deep voice. The Inspector Gadget. Next time, Gadget.
Next time on Trekking Up North, the crew of the U.S.S. Adequate reviewed Star Trek The Next Generation Season 5 episode, The Masterpiece Society. If you like Trekking Up North, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe to the Nerdy Up North YouTube channel. And also don't forget to subscribe to Nerdy Up North on every social media platform that you are a part of.
Are you a god? Choose the form of your destroyer.
If you like this episode, don't forget that we have an entire playlist of Trekking Up North episodes for you to take care and watch. If you like Nerdy Up North, we have a whole range of genre-defining episodes and podcasts for you to enjoy.
You're going to have to stop it. You can't keep on with this.
We also have the Nerdy Up North Twitch channel, in which I, Captain Goodwill, and cousins of Goodwill portray and have fun every Tuesday.
We go. Are we done?
No. Science Officer
Have a drink at least, Christ.
I have got no liquids left. Science Officer Synoiz. What is next for you and the Girl podcast? There's nothing for the Girl podcast right now. We're having a bit of a break, although I will be at Percy Park in North Shields tomorrow, covering the Hadrian Cup, which is an LGBT plus rugby event that happens every year. So, and then on Sunday, and then I'm at a drag brunch tomorrow at Poppy's in Newcastle, where Aurora from Drag Race is the special guest. Then
I can't do it. I can't keep that up. Okay. But yeah. And then we got that. And then it's a big after party for the rugby event, which I don't know if I'm going to go to on Saturday because I just want to rest. I really need to just rest. And then on Sunday it is Drag Idol again. So I will be at Rusty's Show Bar in Newcastle upon Tyne for week 3 of Drag Idol. And then I have to do my next episode of Snatch Talk. So Snatch Talk for this week came out. Please, just to get my views up, even if you don't give a shit what it's about, go and give it a like and go and give it a view. My Snatch Talk series by going on YouTube, clicking the link below, or searching on YouTube for Snatch Talk, all one word. And yeah, because that's what's taking up all my time. And then it's fun, yeah. But yeah, that's about it. And I'm not on any other podcasts except for this one until April. So yay.
I will be live with the Unplanned crew tomorrow night from 11 p.m. GMT as we review an episode of Star Trek Discovery, Season 1, Episode 7, Magic to Make the Sanest Man Go Mad, which is a Harry Mudd episode, and it's got the Bee Gees in, so I'm happy.
Oh, God.
On Tuesday, Cousin Truckwill will be on the Nerdy Up North Twitch stream, hauling his ass in the mighty pink truck that is Lee's dick across the United States of America in American Truck Simulator.
Can you please make a warehouse called Graham's Ass? Like Synoiz's ass, just so that when you finally make the delivery, it's...
Just gotta make a note. Excuse me, guys. Make garage... Synoiz or Graham?
Synoiz. Well,
Synoiz
Graham makes it too real. That makes it like, that's almost like I'm not joking.
Park Lee's dick in Graham Synoiz's ass.
Yeah. And unload
Underline.
it. It's got to unload, remember.
Park Lee's dick in Synoiz's ass.
Yep.
And empty his full load into his page 2 storage area.
Yeah.
Oh my. Underline.
Also, it's my birthday in May, Lee. You know what to get me. Anyway.
Dick.
Right. Yeah, dick.
Until we meet again, Treks and Trekkers, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, debaucheries of all over and Kelly. I have
She's
been
the worst of it. She's the most debauched out of all of us.
She is. Hi, Kelly's mum. I have been Captain Goodwill of the U.S.S. Adequate. He has been Science Officer Synoiz of the U.S.S. Adequate.
Until next week, everybody, take care of yourself, look after each other, live long and prosper, and I will see you next week. Miles.
Miles!
You'll never know the love of the Power Apes.